3 minutes before the show, and I'd tell everybody about my guest, and we'd cut up and yuck it up. Then you probably noticed that today we didn't do it because son Matt can't get it working. Did you get it working, Matthew?
Yes.
Okay, we are now on Facebook Live if anybody wants to watch it. Hey everybody, what's today's date?
It is the anniversary of Columbine, the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, George Takei's birthday, Hitler's birthday, and a celebration of weed.
420.
420. All of those things are true.
Wow, he did his research today, y'all. That's really good. Hitler's birthday and 420. Wow, I didn't know that. So,
And George Takei, I threw in a nice guy.
oh, that's good. So, in honor of 420, we have a really interesting guest today. And I'll tell you who he is in just a second. But first, let me tell you about this show, Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. It began with Entrepreneurs in Mind, a platform for me, a small business owner, and a guest to pay forward our experiential knowledge in a conversational way. As with all new endeavors, it has had some unexpected outcomes, like the show has a wide appeal to everyone, not just business owners, but everyone, because we're all inspired by everyday people's American-made stories. And another is that behind every one of my successful guests is the heart of a teacher. I didn't know that about everybody, but it's really true. And last is that business in of itself is creative. And I am trying to resist using the word art form, but it's kind of an art form. The entrepreneur's vision begins in his mind or her mind and a dream, and each action they take is like a brush stroke on canvas, building and layering until one day they have created something that they're proud of. Today's guest, Dr. Brandon Thornton, is the co-founder and CEO of a startup, Steep Hill of Arkansas, a recently licensed cannabis science laboratory. His business canvas is completely blank, but his skill sets are far and wide. When reading about him, it appears that he has been training all of his life for this opportunity. Today we're going to learn about Brandon, about the business of cannabis science, and about how medical marijuana in Arkansas is going to affect all of us on today's date, 4/20. If you're just tuning in for the first time, you may be asking yourself, what's this lady's story and why does she have a radio show? Well, Tim is here to tell you.
Thank you, Kerry. Over 40 years ago, and with only $400, Kerry McCoy founded Arkansas Flag and Banner. During the last 4 decades, the business has changed and grown dramatically. From door-to-door sales to telemarketing to mail order and catalog sales, and now Flag and Banner relies heavily on the internet, including our newest feature, live chatting. Each decade required a change in sales strategy and procedure. Her business and leadership knowledge grew with time and experience, as well as the confidence to branch out into multimedia marketing that began with our nonprofit Dreamland Ballroom, as well as our in-house publication, Brave Magazine, and this very radio show you're listening to now. Each week on this show, you will hear candid conversations between her and our guests about real-world experiences on a variety of businesses and topics that we hope you'll find interesting. Kerry says that many business rules like treat your employees well, know your profit margin, and have a succession plan can be applied across most industries. What I find encouraging is her example that hard work pays off. Did you know that for 9 years while starting Flag and Banner, she supplemented her income with many part-time jobs? That just shows that her persistence, perseverance, and patience prevailed. Today, Flag and Banner has 10 departments, and I have 25 coworkers. It reminds us all that small businesses are the fuel of our country's economic engine, and that they empower people's lives. If you would like to ask Kerry or our guest a question, or if you would like to share your experience or story, you can email questions@upyourbusiness.org.
Thank you, Tim. My guest today on 4/20, April the 20th, is the pharmacist, Dr. Brandon Thornton, co-founder and CEO of Steep Hill of Arkansas, a laboratory for cannabis science and a medical marijuana testing lab that has been recently licensed to do business in the state of Arkansas. Dr. Thornton received his pharmacy degree in 1999 from Samford University McCoy School of Pharmacy in Birmingham, Alabama. Not long after graduation, he moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and became the assistant pharmacy director for Secure Pharmacy Plus, a company that manages and distributes pharmaceutical services to correctional facilities. I thought that was interesting. While living in Nashville and working for Secure Pharmacy Plus, he was offered a better position at CHD Meridian Healthcare, a publicly traded industry leader healthcare provider. This career change taught him the business side of his industry as he made budgets, managed employees, and served on committees that affected public policy in 8 states. Over the next 10 years, Brandon Thornton would move up the corporate ladder in his field, building his resume in all aspects of pharmacology. Before moving to Little Rock, he spent 9 years with Custom Pharmacy Solutions, where he managed their operations, learned to custom compound, test, and comply with government regulations. Today, he lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, and is a leader in the emerging market of medical marijuana. Whether you're for or against medical marijuana in Arkansas, this is an exciting subject to talk about, and most likely will affect all of us in some way. It is a pleasure to welcome to the table the ambitious and aptly qualified businessman and pharmacist who is licensed in 7 states, Dr. Brandon Thornton of Steep Hill Industries. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Gosh, it's such a thrill to be here today.
Isn't it fun?
It's fun. I'm so glad that you guys have a sense of humor about 420 and have invited me in.
I didn't know if you'd like that or not.
I do. I think it's great.
Okay, I gotta do a few jokes. I can't help it. And then I promise I'm gonna get serious about everything. But the name of the company that is your parent company is Steep Hill. It was founded in 2008, and you're a subsidiary of it. But I mean, Steep Hill, you know what the synonyms for steep are?
I do, yes.
You've heard that before?
I have heard that. And it's actually, there is a hill in Berkeley called Steep Hill. And that is where it was founded.
It's not for high hill. In other words, for high. The synonyms for steep, y'all, are hill, lofty, you know, high.
Right. That makes sense, but it was actually founded,
It's a location.
It is a location. There were a couple professors from UC Davis that really were on the forefront of cannabis testing and analytical testing. They saw a need. Harborside was one of the first dispensaries in the country in Berkeley.
Who's that? That's not Steep Hill, though.
Well, Steep Hill was founded by some of the same founders of Harborside. And so they had these patients. They wanted safe medication to get to these patients. And so they had to figure out how to provide or how to test marijuana to make sure it was pesticide-free, to figure out what the dose was to get a consistent product to patients.
That's right, because you don't know whether it's going to get you real high or just a little high.
That's right.
And so, and I mean, that's not what they're trying to do. They're like, is it going to get you really well or just a little well? So you sent me a resume all about your work career, but you didn't tell me anything about the man, Brandon Thornton. So I want to learn just for a second about you, because I know everybody wants to jump into this cannabis and Arkansas marijuana thing. So how did you decide to be a pharmacist? Was your dad a doctor?
My dad was not a doctor. He's an engineer, but he's an amazing man, learned a lot. And he actually encouraged me to go into pharmacy.
Why?
Well, I was always interested in chemistry and biology. When I got to college, those are the classes that I really kind of gravitated to. And my dad's very pragmatic, and we sat down one day and we sort of went through my likes and dislikes, and I told him about pharmacy, and he was very encouraging. But he's very encouraging. He would have been very encouraged about a lot of things, but that was what I liked, and that was what he sort of
I think that's
supported.
so important to do things that you think that you have an aptitude for and that you already like. Also, when I was reading your resume, you graduated from your pharmacy school in 1999, but then there was a gap until about 2004.
Yeah.
I just want you to tell me you struggled and floundered around
You
like all the rest of us.
did not get the complete resume. I kind of gave you the abbreviated version. So when I graduated, gosh, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had certain hours I had to get after graduation before I could take my pharmacy boards to become completely certified as a pharmacist. And I was completely broke. I mean, like, completely broke. And so I looked around the country. I found the internship to provide those hours that actually paid the most, and it was in Grand Junction, Colorado. And so I packed up everything I owned. I had an 86 Nissan Pathfinder. It was the one with kind of those triangle windows in the back. And everything I owned fit in that. I drove out to Grand Junction, Colorado, didn't know anybody. Found sort of a cheap place to live. Worked there for 3 months to get my intern hours.
You worked like in a pharmacy?
It was in a
like retail probably.
That's right. It was a retail pharmacy connected to a hospital, and it was a lot of great experiences. It was a new part of the country. I mean, I grew up in Tennessee, had never been out of Tennessee for an extended period of time, so that was it was just new. Through that experience, I knew some people in Jackson Hole, Wyoming that ran a pharmacy, and talked to them about maybe coming and working for them. And when I finished that, I was able to take my test, become an official pharmacist, moved to Jackson Hole, and I worked for a company there, which you guys are gonna laugh, but it was called Stone Drug.
He's been training all his life for this.
I guess so. I haven't thought about that, but you're right. We sold a lot of T-shirts because it's kind of funny, but the owner there was great. We actually it was pretty wild. We sold guns, alcohol, and drugs.
Only in Wyoming.
Only in Wyoming.
Montana.
Yeah, we it was a sporting goods store. So my day really was, filling prescriptions, counseling patients, but then I might tie some flies to sell and then sell a gun, do a background check. So it was really interesting. The owner of the pharmacy was a really big Harley guy. He was a biker. Went to Sturgis every year. You look at him and he looked like the meanest guy in the world. Big handlebar mustache, just wore a lot of leather, but the nicest guy. And what he would do, I was really into winter sports. I was really into snowboarding. Still am. And he would allow me to take a lot of time off in the winter. Maybe to go to Canada and kind of follow the snow. And then in the summers, he would go off on his Harley and just camp and drive the glacier. And I'd work a couple months at a time, cover the store, and we would switch off. And it was just a great arrangement.
Wow, that's the best story I've heard in a long time. So you're so the store sold drugs, alcohol, and guns.
And cigarettes. So I mean, if you wanted to party, we were the spot.
It's like the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, right?
Yeah, there you go. It's all together. All right. The next thing you did was you came back and you got a job working for a pharmacy.
There's actually a couple other gaps in there. I'll tell you really quickly.
Okay.
So I actually worked in Atlanta during the Olympics for this company that did event marketing. That was '96, and it was when I was in college. And when the Olympics came up again in Salt Lake, 2002, they were looking for people. They called me and they said, "Hey, were you interested in coming to Salt Lake? I know we heard you're out that direction." And it was just a lot of fun the first time around. I really wanted to do it. I loved the Olympics, and so I went ahead and left, moved to Park City, Utah, and worked for them for that month for the Olympics, and then stayed and managed a pharmacy in Park City and stayed there for probably another.
So did you have your pharmacy
3
license?
years. I did, yeah. I was like a ski bum, but kind of official. I had like a real job, but was still getting to ski a lot.
So then you ended up moving to Nashville, Tennessee, and you got a job selling, distributing and working for the correctional services.
Yeah, well, so we were a big pharmacy that did pharmacy work for prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Nashville has a few companies that are sort of corporate prison companies, and we work with them to provide pharmacy services for prisoners. And it was challenging because we had to give them a short supply at a time. They could only get about 7 days because that's just the rules.
Okay.
And so we filled a lot of prescriptions, like 40,000 plus a day.
Because you had to do them every 7 days.
That's right.
And you couldn't do them a 30-day supplies. It was every 7 days.
Yes.
Probably because they'd overdose or something. I don't know.
Well, because they move around a lot.
Oh, okay.
You might get put in solitary, and then all of a sudden you need different prescriptions.
Oh, okay. And then after that, you went to work for a healthcare provider. Was that an insurance company?
No, it was a company that did on-site healthcare for corporations. So what we did was, if you had a lot of employees in one spot, Toyota was my biggest client. They've got 5 or 6 factories in the United States, and so if you actually have a lot of employees in one place, it's cheaper for you to own your own pharmacy, have your own formulary, and direct your patients to get their prescriptions at work, basically. So what we would do is set up that pharmacy.
That's big.
We'd go there, Georgetown, Texas is a big facility. We had a pharmacy on site, and
At the Toyota plant.
at the plant. It was right out in the parking lot, and people would get off their shift. They would come through and pick up their prescriptions, and because of that, we were able to do a lot of great things. We could give away diabetic supplies, and we could do things to encourage people to be healthy through their pharmacy benefits. So
That is so interesting. And then the next job you had was you went to work for a compounding company.
Yeah, well, so that company got purchased by CVS Caremark.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, I had sort of the option of taking a severance or moving to Maryland. And so I decided I didn't want to move to Maryland, took a severance, and moved to Birmingham at that point. And that was because that's where Jennifer, who's now my wife, lived. And we were dating, and I kind of wanted to.
Did you meet her in college?
I didn't. I met her through a friend in college. One of my really good friends recruited her to come to Birmingham to work at UAB. She's a physician, and that's how I met her.
And so you moved back. So love conquers all. So you moved back, and you got a job working for a compounding company. And there you were actually in the laboratory. And it seemed like you worked there on your resume longer than you worked anywhere. And I got the feeling that you really loved it because you were in the lab and you were working in compounding. And
Kerry, you're very intuitive. That is very true. I always loved the idea of that, and then once I got into compounding, just loved it. Got a lot of training. Really loved being able to take raw materials, manipulate those into tablets, capsules, troches, ointments, gels. It was a lot of fun.
And you had to do a lot of compliancy with the government, probably because of that.
Yes,
which really got you ready for what you're about to do here in Arkansas.
Yes. I learned so much about compliance then.
I'm telling you, your resume is perfect for what you're going to do here in Arkansas. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with pharmacist Dr. Brandon Thornton, co-founder and CEO of Steep Hill of Arkansas, a cannabis science laboratory recently licensed to perform testing on medical marijuana in the state. We're going to find out things like the business side of it, and then we're also going to talk about the user side of it socially, and how it's going to affect us socially. And in addition, I got to tell everybody, this is the last week I'm going to say this, that it's time again for Arkansas Flag and Banner's biannual publication of Brave magazine. If you want to receive your free copy, or if you're interested in putting an ad in the magazine, log on to flagandbanner.com's website and click on the tab labeled magazine to subscribe and get a copy, or to advertise. We are putting the magazine to bed next week, so don't wait. And also, you can call the Flag and Banner office. Tim, do you have that number?
I do. It's 501-375-7633.
And at the bottom of the hour, in about 15 minutes, we'll be taking calls for this radio show, 88.3 FM KABF, the voice of the people. So listen and get your questions ready.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. If you miss any part of the show, or if you would like to learn about Up in Your Business, go to flagandbanner.com and click Radio Show. Or you can subscribe through iTunes, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcast app simply by searching for flagandbanner.com. Lots of listening options. We'll be right back. I said YouTunes. I absolutely did. I was going to correct myself, and then I was like, no, just keep going. Read the script, and be done.
Face,
I was about to say.
Face, and YouTube.
My book.
My book, Scott, now I'm not too worried about any of the stuff that's going to happen in Arkansas because this guy's got it going on.
Yeah. And honestly, my partner is much more impressive. We got to talk about Brent at some point.
Huh?
My partner in this is way more impressive. Brent Whittington. He used to be the CEO and the CFO for Windstream.
Oh.
I heard about that, yeah.
Now he owns a couple companies in Colorado. And
he's already been doing it.
Well, he doesn't own cannabis companies, but he owns other companies, and he kind of saw the potential out there, and
he's like, we can do this.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
See, I thought maybe you had Windstream background.
Yeah, no, that's
him.
Brent. That's Brent. Yeah, we have just different skill sets,
Well, that's what makes a perfect thing. All right. There's a lot to talk about. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking today with Dr. Brandon Thornton, co-founder and CEO of Steep Hill of Arkansas, a cannabis science and testing laboratory for the emerging market of medical marijuana in Arkansas. And the reason we're talking to him is because today is...
It's 420.
Before the break, we went over Brandon's credentials, and I'm just going to recap really quick. Early on, he counted and dispensed drugs to correctional facilities. That's kind of retail. You were a director of operations and worked on the business side of pharmacology at your next job. You worked, I thought, was what was considered a healthcare side of the insurance, healthcare insurance side of it, but it was actually, again, director of operations. You worked in a pharmacy that was a mail order business and shipped
everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Talk about sending drugs over state lines. That's got to be a logistic nightmare. And your longest stint was at custom compounding for a drug company where you managed a laboratory and its staff, and you introduced new products, and you had rigid compliance issues. This seems like the perfect prerequisite for the new CEO position you have at Steep Hill. And I want to read what Steep Hill says about itself online, and then we'll jump into the business of medical marijuana. Steep Hill says, we are a network of licensed laboratories with extensive expertise in analytical testing, remote testing, cannabis genetics, and research with our strategic partners around the globe. Steep Hill's foundation was built on testing and analyzing cannabis to ensure compliance with public safety standards. In 2008, Steep Hill opened the first commercial cannabis lab in the United States and has successfully completed over 100,000 analytical cannabis tests. With the goal of helping the rest of the world adopt best practices, the company also provides expert consulting services to legislatures and regulators in many countries, states, and municipalities around the world. Am I on the right page? Yeah. Around the world. There you go. Medical marijuana has, so I want to say that starting again. I want to say that medical marijuana is twofold. There is the business side of it, medical marijuana in Arkansas, and then there is the user side of medical marijuana and what it does and what it can do and help people. And let's talk first about the consumers.
Okay.
And the societal changes that will happen, and then we'll go into the business opportunities after that. So tell us what's good about it for the consumers, what you like and what you think it's going to be able to do.
Gosh, well, the thing about cannabis is it's been used for thousands of years as medicine. It really predates us. It predates, the FDA and kind of how we get drugs today to patients. And if you think about it, the traditional FDA model is, maybe there is a plant somewhere in the world, we'll just say somewhere in the Himalayas, where that when people take it, maybe they don't have a tremor anymore. And so scientists might take that plant and synthesize that down and look at all the components, and they will find maybe the component that will work for tremors. And then it goes through preclinical trials, and then the FDA gets involved, and then there's more trials, and then if they're lucky, if it's safe, it will be approved, and it's going to go to customers. With cannabis, really what happened is we had thousands of years of stories like, hey, this works, people are using this for these conditions. But then prohibition happened, back 30s and the 40s, and so we couldn't continue along that path to where...
It was legal before that, right?
It was, it was actually in the U.S. Pharmacopoeia. Companies like Lilly and Wyeth, companies that you've heard of today that manufacture medications, manufactured cannabis, they sold that, they marketed that.
Is it all medicine plant-based?
No, it's not, but a lot of it is. There are a lot of synthetic compounds that it's not plant-based. A good example of that is Marinol, which is synthetic THC. So there is a synthetic THC product that's on the market that's called Marinol, and it's used for, it has an indication.
So that's legal?
That's legal. That's legal.
I see.
If you're a physician, you can write for that medication. it doesn't have it's not written for a lot because it's not tolerated well. Patients don't really like it, and I think part of that is that there's a concept that's called the entourage effect, which really means that the plant itself and all the components sort of come together to produce a medicinal effect. And if you really take any of those parts out by themselves, they don't really work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, with all those side effects.
That's right. That's right.
So what is medical marijuana going to cure besides help with glaucoma?
Well, you know, we've got 18 indications here in
We've got what?
18 different conditions or indications that physicians can certify patients for here in Arkansas.
You remember them all?
No.
So glaucoma.
They're on, but if you go to healthy.arkansas.gov, there are the list of the conditions and also how to get a card. If you're a patient out there, you want a card.
Can you get one today?
You can get a card today, and in fact, I would encourage people to do that because, you know, even though there are some issues legally and the program is getting held up, you know, right now the number one, the Board of Health has time to go through and you know, get that process done. There's not a rush like there will be later on.
Oh, I see what you mean. So go ahead and get your card now.
Yeah, and maybe it'll help pressure regulators a little bit if they see, you know, there's 50,000 Arkansans that need this, and we're still waiting.
But you said they can get the card and they can go ahead and they can't use the card though.
No, and in fact, they can apply for the card and they can get approved for the card.
But they can't buy anything. There's nothing to buy.
They can't buy anything. The Board of Health is actually not going to issue cards until 30 days before a product is ready to be sold.
So it helps with upset stomachs, right? Marijuana, THC helps with upset stomachs.
Well, it could. I mean, okay, so let me make one more point
Okay.
about these conditions is that one of the biggest problems with cannabis is a lack of good research like we have with other medications because of what we talked about earlier with prohibition. You know, right now there are studies that happen, but the studies aren't great for a few reasons. One is all the marijuana that is used for studies in the United States comes from Ole Miss, from the University of Mississippi. They actually grow marijuana there for studies, specifically for studies. And, you know, the marijuana they grow there, the marijuana they grow there is known to be completely substandard. You know, if you test it, it comes in at about 8% THC. You know, if we all packed up and drove to Colorado and went to a dispensary, we could find, you know, 25% THC cannabis. We also don't know what else is in that marijuana from Ole Miss.
Are they not testing like crazy out in California? I mean, Colorado?
They are testing, but you can't use that. Well, so we're talking about test for you know, medical conditions, clinical trials. Those tests, they are not allowed to use the good stuff. They're stuck with the Ole Miss marijuana.
So Colorado doesn't have permission from anybody to grow and test for medical reasons in Colorado?
No, they do that. But really what I'm getting at is, you know, your question on would it be good for upset stomach? Well, to know that, we really need a good study, a clinical trial from a major university.
Oh, it has to be from a
us
university pretty much.
Well, you know, it has to be a double-blinded clinical trial that we could present to a physician, present to someone in the medical community and say, these are the reasons why this works.
And all those clinical trials pretty much have to be done in an academic environment, it seems like.
Yeah, you know, and a lot of those are sponsored, you know, either through the state or through drug companies.
Yeah, through Lilly or something.
And we just don't have that with cannabis. And so that's what is really hard is we have a lot of anecdotal evidence about what works and what doesn't, but we don't have this hard evidence that we would have if
Why don't they get better pot out there in Ole Miss?
Well, that I can't answer. Maybe they have bad genetics. The way they grow isn't great. You know, if you look at California, some of these cutting edge facilities, I mean, the science that goes into growing marijuana is amazing. I mean, they've got, you know, geneticists that are coming up with seeds that are very resistant to...
When you start your lab, are you going to get to do that?
Well,
are you going to get funding to find out some of these medical Or are you just going to test it to see the level of THC so people know whether to put it on the shelf that makes you laugh or the shelf that makes you go to sleep?
So, a couple things. One thing I'm doing now is partnering with some people to do a cannabis journal club. And we've met once. We met a couple weeks ago. And it's really just a group of scientific individuals, medical professionals that can look at studies objectively and find out, hey, maybe marijuana has a place with upset stomach. Mm-hmm. And through that, we hope to do a couple things. One, potentially find ways to do studies through local universities. We've got a great group at University of Arkansas Little Rock that just do amazing work with drugs. And some of those people are coming and participating in our journal club. And then the other focus of the journal club is to maybe find conditions that we can go to the state board and petition to get them added as conditions. Because really that's what we want is what works. I mean, with cannabis, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of myth. I mean, what we want to do is figure out exactly through hard science, what works and in what doses and how we can get the best result for patients.
Mm-hmm. So there's got to be some statistics on whether it's good or bad societal, like crime. Does it reduce crime? Does it reduce the amount of people in jail if they legalize marijuana like this? I mean, there's statistics about how it's going to affect Arkansas socially.
Well, there are. You can look at other states, and the thing about statistics is that, and studies, is that it's really hard to find one that's really unbiased and kind of comes from a place where they're just looking at facts. And with Colorado, if you really look into it, there's studies that say that it's horrible and it's caused homelessness and it's caused a lot of teenage addiction and it's caused traffic accidents and really when you look at the actual data and the numbers, it's just not true. I mean, really for Colorado, what it's caused is just a lot of tax revenue for the state, a lot of new businesses and entrepreneurship, and there's not a lot of people that are complaining there. So, and I think it'll be the same with Arkansas. I mean, you really, when you sort of dry up the black market, a lot of the negatives go away.
Mm-hmm. I think about that, about crime reduction, if that would really reduce our crime, would really reduce the amount of people in jail. I think about healthcare improvements, if people could really get clean, clinical THC to use. I know that you're excited about it because you're a lab rat, but what are you really wanting out of it for yourself or your new business?
Gosh, we really just.
I know you want money.
Don't
pretend like you don't want money.
We're definitely entrepreneurs. We want to do well, and for us, what would be great is that here in Arkansas we can start, and really Arkansas has a unique opportunity here because we are the first state here in the South to actually have a workable medical program. A few other states have programs, but here in Arkansas we can have.
What's a workable medical program?
Well, a workable medical program to me has the right qualifying conditions, which I believe we have. It doesn't have restrictions on the type of products that can be sold. Here we're gonna have flour on the shelf. We're gonna have oils, waxes, tinctures, a bud.
So you're gonna have buds on the shelf. You're gonna have. You think UAMS is gonna want to get involved in this? I mean, we've got UAMS.
They've been involved in some studies and research so far, and I think that's probably what their involvement will be.
So what do you say to people who say, I don't want this in Arkansas?
Well, I would figure out why. I would ask them, what are your reservations?
What do you think the reservations are? They're just afraid everybody's going to...
Well, I think a lot of people are just like me, and they grew up in the age of Nancy Reagan and Prohibition, and just say no. And for me, it took. I was a skeptic. I mean, the way that I kind of came to accept marijuana as medicine is, along with we talked about resume. Also did an internship with the FDA before any of that, and part of my job was to work with MedWatch, which is an adverse event reporting group, we would look at drugs that would have adverse events. Example, Viagra was my first drug. There were a lot of people having heart attacks when they combined Viagra with nitrates. Now that's a known thing and people watch out for that. But through that, I read a lot of studies about cannabis, and going into that job or that internship, I was a real skeptic. I would see people or hear people, and they would say, hey, I use this for sleep or anxiety or whatever, and I thought they were crazy, or they were really just using that as an excuse to get high. Mm-hmm. After doing some research, I thought maybe there's something to this. I would see studies, and and then the more research I did, I completely changed my mind, and that's how I would really approach. I know everybody's not like me, but I think if you look at it from just a pragmatic place, and without really these preconceived notions about what you've heard, but look at actual results, you'll come around. And then when you start talking about tax money and you start talking about just what it does for a community,
I think people are afraid of it being a gateway drug. That's what
I agree, and and there's studies out there that show that that's just not true.
Really?
Yeah, it's just not true. If anything is a gateway drug, in my opinion, it's alcohol.
Well, that's true. I can't deny that one either. I'm skeptic a little bit, but I'm also excited at the same time because it can really help a lot of people and takes the criminal element out of trying to find medicine that works for you that's got a natural ability.
That's right. And to me, it comes down to it's very safe. There's never been a single person to overdose on marijuana. Ever.
Should you smoke it or do you eat it?
Well, you could do either. I mean, you can.
Does smoking hurt your lungs?
It does. It does.
So you should eat it. Does it hurt your stomach?
Does not hurt your stomach. You can vaporize it. That's sort of like smoking, but you're not. There's no combustion, so you're not.
Is it those vapes, those cigarette vapes? Is that like you put in your vape?
Yeah, it could be that. It's
Okay.
oil.
This is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with pharmacist Dr. Brandon Thornton, co-founder and CEO of Steep Hill of Arkansas, a cannabis science laboratory recently licensed to perform testing of medical marijuana in the state of Arkansas. And it's time again for Arkansas Flag and Banner's biannual publication of Brave Magazine. If you want to receive your free copy, or if you're interested in putting an ad in the magazine, log on to flagandbanner.com's website and click on the tab labeled Magazine to subscribe or advertise. We are putting the magazine to bed next week, so don't wait. Or you can call Flag and Banner's office, and the number is
501-375-7633.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the business of marijuana. Everybody wants to get in on it. We're going to talk about the realities of that. We're also going to be taking calls for our good doctor on KABF 88.3 FM, the voice of the people. Right after this break, Tim will give you the number, so get your questions ready.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. If you miss any part of the show, or if you'd like to learn more about Up in Your Business, go to flagandbanner.com and click on Radio Show, or subscribe through YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. Your favorite podcast app can be found just by searching flagandbanner.com. Lots of listening options. We'll be right back with the phone number for calling in. KBF.
So is this going all right? Is this
Yeah,
how it's supposed to work?
I was going to say, a good point that I always found about it being a
Would you like to
gateway
call in and ask your questions
was that,
live on there?
whenever you're buying it on the black
No,
market,
okay.
dealers typically have other drugs too.
Yeah, that's right. So, hey, you want to write the question down? I'll ask him live. What's the question?
His last name's Thornton.
Thorton.
And it's Steep
Brandon.
Steep Hill.
Arkansas. Yeah.
Thank you. There was a lady that didn't want to be live on there. She just wanted to know your last name and the company name.
Okay.
She
Okay,
works
I'll
in the
tell her.
medical field and she wants to contact you to work. So I was like,
Yeah.
I asked her, do you want to answer your question live on there? And she was like, absolutely not.
She's like, that's why I did it before you gave the number out.
And we're not actually licensed yet.
Oh, we're not?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
because
gotcha.
we can't be yet. The state hasn't given out any licenses.
Oh, they
for
have?
labs. Yeah,
But they're going to.
they will. Yeah.
You're pretty much.
We will get licensed, but it's just hadn't happened yet.
Okay, I'm gonna take that word out.
All right, about 10 seconds.
Okay, I'm gonna take that. Emerging canon.
This will help avoid a lot of violence as well when people go to the hood.
All right, we're back.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking today with Brandon Thornton. Somebody called in, wanted to know again what the name of the gentleman is I'm talking to. His name is Brandon Thornton, Thorton. He's the co-founder and CEO of Steep, S-T-E-E-P, Steep Hill of Arkansas. Do you have a website?
We do. It's steephill.com.
There you go. And they're a cannabis science and testing laboratory, and they're going to be part of the emerging market for medical marijuana in Arkansas. So we're going to talk about the business of medical marijuana in Arkansas in a minute. And if you've got questions or think you might have questions, write this number down.
The number is 501-433-0088.
Say that again, Tim.
501-433-0088.
So you can call in and ask Brandon anything. And if you're shy, you can send an email. Adrian, will you help me watch my email? Because sometimes I forget to look over there. You can send an email to?
The email is questions@upyourbusiness.org.
That's questions with an S. At the beginning of the show, we talked about your extensive work history and your credentials. And I have to say, my confidence in this new emerging cannabis market has grown considerably. After reading about you and your parent company, Steep Hill Industries, I'm happy to say I'm no longer nervous. And we talked about what medical marijuana means to consumers and the people of Arkansas and how it might affect their lives. And now I'd like to talk about the business opportunities, and just to list some of the opportunities. People always think of retailers, but there's the growers, and we're an agricultural state. There's the harvesters, which might be a different group of people. There's transportation of moving the cannabis around. There's testing, that's what you're going to do. And then there's packaging, there's retail, and then there's taxation. What do you think this all means for Arkansas's economy?
Well, I think it means a lot, and there's also a lot of other things that are ancillary, to
What's that mean?
Just plumbers and electricians and IT people and accountants and attorneys. Right now attorneys are probably writing Christmas cards for Judge Griffin on our latest ruling and our hold up with the process, but.
What does that mean? What happened? What's the process? What are you talking about?
Well, right now there's some legal challenges to the Medical Marijuana Commission and their scoring results, and so we're sort of held up. We can't really move forward until those are complete.
So they've approved it, that we can start selling marijuana. The people voted for it.
People voted for it.
A bunch of companies submitted their business plans.
Yes.
How many did? I don't even know.
Well, there were 95 cultivation applications, and the cultivators are who have been scored so far.
And how many were awarded?
5.
And you were one of them?
No.
What?
So that is what the cultivators are. The people that are actually growing the product.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're growing the product.
So have they done any labs or testing labs? Have they approved it for any of that yet?
They have not.
So you haven't even come up to bat yet? so
Not
to
yet.
speak.
Not yet.
And so the harvesters, they approved 5 out of the 90, but now it's held up in court because of what?
Well, some of the people that did not get selected just took exception to the process, and it was within their rights to challenge that and challenge the results, and that's what they've done. And so we're just really waiting through that process.
Who's going to make the decision? How long is it going to a jury? Is it just a judge going to do it?
Well, right now it's in a Pulaski County court. A judge has made a decision. It's probably going to go to the Supreme Court. The state has appealed that decision. So, I think that will come probably later on this summer.
Oh, that soon.
Yeah.
And then when do you get to go? When did they start talking about labs?
Well, the rules for the labs are out there, and we know what we have to do. The main thing for us is we've got to get accredited by an organization called ISO, and it's tough. It's a big job. Luckily, through our partnership with Steep Hill, they've gotten many labs ISO accredited, and so they know the process. We feel really good about that.
How many companies are there like Steep Hill in the United States?
I'd say there's nobody like Steep Hill. Because of the, we're the largest network of labs in the country. We also have some international facilities, and we're really growing right now in Canada and Europe. Canada's kind of ground zero for cannabis growth right now. it's completely legal up there, and you can actually be a publicly traded company and work in cannabis. So it's really exploding. There are other labs, but nobody that kind of has a nationwide footprint.
Well, if Canada's doing it, we ought to be able to get a lot of statistics on how it affects society and how it affects business and how it affects the tax
There's
base.
a lot of happy Canadians today.
But they don't know they're happy. So harvesters are in, transportation, testing, packaging, retail. We can't even talk about any of that. Or do we even know how they're going to do the tax base?
Well, yeah, there's some tax information in the amendment. It's not all set out yet. There's a medical marijuana commission that meets and sort of decides exactly what they want to do.
So it's not legal in the federal government, is it?
It is not.
How come
It is
people aren't
not.
going to jail, federal prisons?
Well, mainly because under the previous administration, there was a few legal memos that were put forward that basically said leave the states alone. If a state wants to have a medical program or an adult use program, then let them do that. We are not going to use federal resources to go after these cannabis states. And really, I think they just see it as a low priority federally because they've got actual criminals and people
That
that.
need to be focused
Yeah,
on. The
yeah.
barrier of entry into this new emerging market seems daunting to me. I mean, where do you even get started?
Well, I tell you what, nothing's easy. You're going to have challenges along the way. I think that there is a lot of opportunity, but I do think that in a state like Arkansas, you're either really limited on the amount of licenses that are out there. So if you were one of those 95 cultivators that applied, you spent months and months putting together an application. You probably had a couple consultants that helped you with that. You found a facility, you did a survey, you put your heart and soul into a 1,500-page document. You submit it and you hope for the best. That part of it.
You got to partner up with somebody with deep pockets, probably.
Well, you do. You got to have not only financial resources, but also you've got to have the knowledge, the know-how. If you look at how the commission scored, they really put a lot of credit towards operations. Can you run a facility
Like you have. That's why Steve Hill likes working with you, because you have great credentials for being able to execute and do a startup in this industry.
Well, I hope so.
What do you think the future for cannabis is in America as a whole? Do you think it's going to be in every state eventually?
I do. I think that people have seen these other states that have legalized and just how they're doing financially, and also
It's like gambling. Everybody's going to, nobody wanted gambling in your state, and then all of a sudden people started putting casinos everywhere.
yeah, I could see that, but this this is something that can truly help patients, and I think that the difference is when right now we have 5,000 patients that have applied in Arkansas, and each one of those 5,000 patients, once we have legal cannabis, when they start treating themselves with that, they're going to have a story. They're going to tell their neighbor, and then their neighbor, now maybe their neighbor knows somebody personally it's affected, and it's going to change hearts and minds. I just think that it's going to take time, but you go to other states where it is legal, and it's not really a thought anymore. I mean, people, it's just
You
part of
really
their
do
life.
believe in the medical side of this.
100%.
You really do. You think it's going to help
I would
patients.
not be doing this because it's not easy. I would not be doing this
You
if I wasn't a
believe in the
believer.
power of THC to
Of the
heal
plant.
people, of the plant. You believe in the plant.
Preach, sister.
Preach, sister. And you love the idea of being on the cutting edge of learning about it and being a researcher that gets to write a book and be.
It's a lot of fun, and really just in Arkansas, there are great people that are involved in this industry.
I tell you, the only thing I don't like about it is
Okay.
when I'm in Colorado and I drive down the road, I can smell that skunk smell driving down the freeway, and I don't like that smell. How are you going to do that? We're going to grow it, and these are being grown indoors, I think. So I think they're
I will
vintage.
get you an air freshener, one of those little things.
You're going to have to get a big one. I mean, really, you drive down Colorado, anybody that's gone down to Colorado, you can drive down the freeway and you just go through pockets of the smell.
You're right. But here in Arkansas, the cultivators, the original 5 that got licenses before there were legal challenges, they're not down the street. I mean, these people are in rural
What
areas.
if you're in rural Arkansas and your neighbor and you're downwind from the guy who puts in a marijuana farm? I mean, you just ruined your outdoor living experience.
Well, I
And
think
that actually happened to a friend of mine in California.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
They had a wine. They had a vineyard,
Yeah.
and some people put a pot farm up, and they had to sell it because they couldn't stand to go outside.
I could see that happen in other states. Here, it's so tightly regulated. You've got to be so far away from, churches and schools, and I can't imagine anybody putting a facility, where it would be a problem.
And when you live in the country, you never know what your crazy neighbors are going to do.
And you've probably got other things out there like, cows or a chicken house that might smell worse.
Yeah, that's right. You don't want to be downwind from the.
If they put them in Pine Bluff, it might make it smell better. Or West Memphis. Both of those
Some
towns
people like
have
that
paper
smell.
mills,
Hey,
so they already smell terrible.
people from Pine Bluff, I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm not saying that there's bad people. I'm saying there's a paper mill there.
We love you, Pine Bluff.
That's right. All right, what's the biggest myth out there about medical marijuana? There's got to be one.
Biggest myth. I think that it's toxic. I think people put it in the same category as heroin or fentanyl or meth or something that can actually kill you. There is a medical term called LD50, and it means lethal dose for 50% of the population. So if you had 100 people, what amount of something could you give them to where half would be toxic? For alcohol, that number is pretty small. It's equivalent of 0.4% blood alcohol content. And for tobacco, it's 50 milligrams for nicotine. So if you ingested 50 milligrams of nicotine, it would kill 50% of the population.
Daggone.
For marijuana, it's 50 pounds.
Oh, that's a lot.
So
You can't
it's
ingest that.
physically
You've got a
impossible.
phone call. You want to grab that phone call? Hey, you're listening. Hello, caller. You're listening to Up in Your Business with Brandon Thornton. Have you got a call from a question from my guest?
Yeah, what was it? Brandon, what's the name of your company again?
It's Steep Hill, Arkansas.
Oh, okay. Thought it might be that Acreage Holdings, one John Boehner's on now, the advisory board.
Yeah, that was some interesting news to see.
Yeah, it was.
Kind of change his mind on cannabis and actually get into the business.
What are y'all talking about?
John Boehner, who used to be the
Ex-Speaker of the House, he took a job. He used to have a position against medical marijuana. Now he's on the advisory board of Acreage Holdings, company that's going to either do lab work or something. I don't know.
I think they're more of a full service company. They have grows, they do consulting.
Okay.
Pretty much do everything.
Well, I think it's ironic that the only reason marijuana is illegal is because of the Drug Classification Act of 1970, which the FDA only has to classify a drug, to make it a felony. They classified marijuana along with cocaine and heroin as a class 1 narcotic, which makes it a felony, and it also is saying that there's no medical use. You can't use it for medical purposes either.
Yeah, sir, you're absolutely correct. And I appreciate your call because you're right, and that's a good point.
Well, I mean, hey, I think it's ironic. I think it has medicinal purposes, and it's strange that all these states have made it legal now for medical reasons, and it has definitely proved itself to have medical benefits.
That's right.
And that's crazy. I mean, you and I have never voted to make this product illegal.
Oh, that's right. You're right. You mean the legislature did it all.
Yeah, well, they empowered the FDA to do it.
There you go.
And the FDA, whoever that mysterious body of people are, classified it a Class A narcotic.
Yeah,
Didn't vote on it, you didn't vote on it, but we did vote to make it legal.
that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Listen, thanks for calling in. That's really good. I appreciate that call very much. Thanks, caller. I've never really thought about that before. And you know, I don't know if y'all have ever watched AETN, PBS, my favorite station on the whole planet, but they did a documentary on marijuana and why it became legal, why it became illegal. And have you ever watched it?
I have,
Brandon,
yeah.
you're nodding
Yeah.
your head. It's radio, you can't nod your head. It says it became, everybody was smoking it and it was fine until I believe it was the Depression that they wanted to get rid of the Hispanics from Mexico because they thought they were taking their jobs during the Depression, and so they came out and couldn't figure out how to deport them, and so they came out and made marijuana illegal so that they could arrest them and send them back. Did I get that right?
Well, yeah, you're on the right track. It was Harry Ainsinger, and he was from the FBI, I believe, and and they really needed something to sort of demonize a population of people, and they used marijuana to do it.
To demonize Hispanics so that they could deport them and people could get their jobs back. Oh my gosh, this last caller, this is going to be the quickest call in the world, and then we got to go. Hello, caller, you're on the air. You're on the air up in your business. You have a call. You have a question for Brandon?
I do. I've been in healthcare for about 25 years. I started out as a trauma nurse, and we had rather see someone come in high on marijuana than drinking alcohol because the demeanor is so much more pleasant. So I'm all for it, but I do have a question. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Joint Commission, CMS, other regulatory entities made a push for pain to be the fifth vital sign. And so we encouraged people to take opioids, all these narcotics and different things. With this being relatively new, with your research, where do you see us in 10 years? Are we just creating another monster that will have to come back and regulate heavier, like we do narcotics now, or do you not see a risk in that?
Well, I don't, mainly because it works in a different way. How opiates work on your central nervous system, and they work in ways that can kill you. They can depress your respiratory system, and particularly combined with alcohol and benzos and other drugs, are very dangerous and addictive. Marijuana just doesn't have those properties. It's very safe in comparison. And I really even hate to compare the two. And in fact, studies have shown that opiate use and doses have been reduced in people that also are using cannabis, meaning that you need less. And there's also some evidence that cannabis can help people with their treatment, particularly with the symptoms of withdrawal, and actually break that cycle and quit taking those altogether.
Wow, that's interesting. Thanks, caller. I appreciate that. Brandon, I have enjoyed this so much on 420 today.
This has been awesome. The highlight of my week.
Oh, thanks. Listen, we have a gift for you. I thought you were from Alabama, so I have to trade this in. I've given you a desk set with a U.S. flag and Arkansas flag because you're here now, and an Alabama flag because that's where you went to college.
I did. Thank you
said
so
you were
much.
born
This
in
is beautiful.
Tennessee. We should have gotten you in Tennessee.
Chattanooga's pretty close to Alabama. It's right on the border.
Oh, that's good. You need that in your new cannabis office, your new laboratory. Put that up in your laboratory. That'll be nice. Thank you so much. Hey, Tim, who's our guest next week?
Next week is going to be Representative Warwick Sabin.
I love Ward Sabin. I've known him for a long time. In fact, I even went to his wedding.
And he's running for mayor against a guest of the show, the current mayor,
Mark Stodola?
Mark Stodola, who we had as a guest.
And I love Mark Stodola. I hate that when my friends run against each other. That happens all the time. Yeah, I'm just not going to vote. I'm just going to stay home that day. I'm not going to pick sides. If you've got a great, you know what else about Warwick Sabin? He worked for Oxford American Magazine.
Oh, okay.
He did a good job with that too. So we'll talk about that. He helped turn that magazine around. If you've got a great entrepreneurial story you would like to share, I would love to hear from you. Send a brief bio and your contact info to questions, with an S, at upyourbusiness.org. And finally, to our listeners, thank you for spending time with me. If you think this program's been about you, you're right. And it's also been for me. Thank you for letting me fulfill my destiny. My hope today is that you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that it, whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and be brave.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. If you'd like to hear this program again, next week a podcast will be made available online with links to resources you heard discussed on today's show. Kerry's goal, to help you live the American dream.
Hey, thanks so much.
Are you going to be?
That was awesome.
I can't believe you're not licensed already, but they're not giving those out.
No, you know, we're kind of putting off doing a few things because there's not really a timeline. We're probably looking at 2020.
Hey, say goodbye to Facebook, people.
God, hey, bye Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. See you next Friday.